Hello.
Hi everybody! So this is the second video we're doing for our possibility pile collection.
That's right. I'm smarter about it now, and I think I will be very, very proud of myself for instead of like reading nothing.
Oh, so that's your check-in.
That'll be something that I've actually read.
Is that your check-in? You've read nothing?
I check nothing in. All right, here we go. Would you like to start?
Well, if we are doing check-ins, I actually read most of my possibility pile. I think I only missed 3, and 2 of the 3 are going to be in today's video as well. So we're just going to quickly show you the 2 that I'm going to include today. So Legendborn, I still really want to read. This is the one where she is still grieving the death of her mom. She goes to a program at a college in North Carolina, discovers there is a secret magical society, and the lore is very Arthurian based. Still very much looking forward to reading that. And I will also be reading the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I'm still really curious about it because I know a lot of people absolutely love it, and this series, every single book won the Hugo Award, so obviously curious. If you want to see more detailed information, you can check out last month's possibility pile where I talked about both of these books. So I'm going to talk about the books that I'm reading with other people for this month. I'm going to start with Tiger's Curse, which is the first book in the Tiger's Curse series by Colleen Hooke. I actually read this book ages ago. I think I read it in, I want to say 2011? It had to be like early days of my blog life, and I actually really enjoyed it. From what I remember, it's about a girl named Kelsey, and she finds herself involved in trying to break an old Indian curse. It has something to do with tigers. I remember this because she has to team up with someone, I think he either shifts into the tiger or becomes a tiger, named Red. I remember really liking this book. We'll see how it holds up. I'm reading that one for the Paranormal book club that I run with DJ and Kristen and Rachel, and we just kind of revisit older YA fantasy paranormal stories and either read or reread them together. So this is our pick for the first quarter of the year. I'm also reading another book with Rachel, and the book in question is Halfway to the Grave, which is the first book in the Night Hunter series by Janine Frost. After failing during our experiment with the Lord of the Underworld series, we decided to try this series instead to see if it could be the replacement. So this is about a half vampire named Catherine Crawfield, and she's basically going after the undead because she wants to figure out which one is her father and basically the man who ruined her mother's life. But then she gets captured by a vampire who is a bounty hunter.
Sure.
And they end up having to team up together. I have heard a lot of good things about this series. I know a lot of people who have read it, and I'm really curious. I'm hoping that this is going to be the series we stick with for this year because, you know, maybe second time's the charm this time. So that's the one I'm reading with Rachel. And the last book that I need to talk about is the one I'm reading with my sisters Mel and Rachel and my cousin Carmela for our book club. And the book is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which I'm very excited about. It's basically her spin on the story of Achilles. I have heard nothing but praise for this book. I also really enjoyed her take on Circe, so I'm curious to see how she handles the story of Achilles. So those are the 3 books I'm reading with other people this month. What are you reading?
Okay, my possibility pile is all digital, so that's already setting me up to win. And by all digital, I mean I do have copies of them all on my Kindle, so that means I can take them wherever I go, as if I go anywhere.
I know, right?
But that means I don't have to like go through shelves and then pick up books and then just like whatever. It's all sort of like whenever I want to flick through back and forth. So let's start with the actual graphic novels. So we're going to start with Ronin Island by Greg Pak.
Okay.
It's set in a fictional sort of like offshoot of medieval East Asian history where a bunch of towns across Japan, Korea, and I want to say China were sort of like wiped out, and the remnants of like refugees sort of built out their own little sort of like utopian civilization or whatever. So centers around a bunch of young kids who have to now face some kind of invaders that are coming in, because there's always invaders back in the day before human rights were a thing. We've got Birthright by Joshua Williamson and Andre Bresson, sort of set in a kind of like modern day semi-dystopic world. A couple loses their son because there are magical elements sort of involved maybe, and then he comes back and they're not ready for that. And obviously it has to do with some kind of destiny. I mean, the front covers, as you can see, is pretty like, you know, kind of cool. So that's definitely something that I want to get into. Red Thorn Volume 2. I had read Red Thorn sort of like last year. It's a story about sort of like Irish sort of mythology.
I remember this.
And that was kind of really cool, and I liked it. And now I have Volume 2 because I just had. I'd say might as well. It's time. It picks up from the terrible events of Book 1, where we've got a young girl who has the power to draw things and make them come to life, and she has no idea how much deeper the story runs. She tries to find where, you know, or like leads as to her sister that disappeared in the UK. And finds more than she bargained for, and realizes that she's unleashed an ancient demigod who's been imprisoned for the last 1,000 years. 1,000 years anyway. So there's that. Real quick, before we move on to the actual sort of like, you know, books, right?
Okay.
I did stumble upon on Comixology Unlimited the graphic novel version of Beautiful Creatures. Now, contrary to popular belief, I actually like Beautiful Creatures. Both the book
it's actually a decent book, honestly.
And the movie. That's right.
I'm still 50-50.
I kind of really dug that. I did. I mean, I wasn't too happy with what they did with Jeremy Irons' character, but whatever. I was totally into that. It's so cool. Plus, I love Cami Garcia. It's a win-win-win-win-win. Death Goddess Dance by Levi Black. We gotta talk about that a little bit because it's book 3 of his Mythos trilogy. I saw Levi at BookNet Fest like ages ago during, I think, the first inaugural BookNet Fest, I want to say. I had picked up like the Mythos Wars books and I loved it. I loved it. Death Goddess Dance is the 3rd installment where it centers around a girl who sort of suffered a lot of trauma until one of the elder gods picks her out to be his red right hand. This is the end of that trilogy, and we'll see how she fits into this whole world of sort of like stirring old ones and how she's going to keep any semblance of, you know, like normalcy and even sanity as the Cthulhu mythos sort of happens. So there's that. Super cool. I really want to get into the Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix. The Left-Handed Booksellers of London follows the story of a young girl who, in her quest to find her father, leads her to extended family who happens to be fighting librarians or what have you. Well, fighting booksellers, not librarians. So they're all booksellers, but they also are fighters, and they police sort of like the old world. And in my head, I'm just, give me some more of that. Garth, I love Garth Nix so much.
I know you do.
Finally, because the advent of what every Ben Barnes fan has been waiting for, well, actually, no, not just Ben Barnes, but also the Darkling fans, that's a huge thirst overlap, I think, for Venn diagrams. We talked about this, right? How there's the people who thirst over Ben Barnes, and there's the people who thirst over the Darkling, and then there's that sweet spot literally in the middle, all puns and innuendo intended, where they're like, we're gonna get us some. What are you, they say? Somebody who's gonna read Shadow and Bone, I reply. Lee Bardugo, obviously, getting her day in the Netflix sun, along with all the other Ben Barnes and Darkling thirsters. I have to reread it now. For those of you who did not lose your minds, you either did not watch the trailer, have never heard of Shadow and Bone, or don't really like it. So this is for all of us. Even you guys that I just mentioned, that didn't go crazy with the trailer. This is a great precursor to something doable on my possibility pile.
It's a reread for him.
It is 100% a reread.
Alright, 2 more books from me. First is going to be A Room with a View, which is by E.M. Forster. This is one of the books on my books to read in 2021. This is about Lucy Honeychurch. She goes on vacation in Florence and she kind of develops feelings for a person she meets there named George Emerson. Okay. But after a sort of unplanned kiss and a sudden, sudden departure from Florence, she ends up back in London. She's engaged to someone else, but will that really be the way things turn out? I've never read any book by this author. I've never read this classic, but I am very curious about it, and I figured, you know, since we're getting into spring, this might be a good time to read something that sort of feels like spring to me. I don't know if it's just the way that this book is designed that makes me feel that way, but I am eager to get to it. And the last book I'm going to mention is How to Stop Time by Matt Higg. His name might sound familiar to you. His recent release was called The Midnight Library. Had a great concept, read that one in December. This one is about Tom Hazard. He's actually lived through a lot of eras because I don't know if it's like a condition in the book or if it's like got some magical explanation, but he basically doesn't age and he doesn't die. So he's been alive forever and ever and ever. He wants to live a mostly normal life, but there's a society that sort of monitors individuals like him called the Albatross Society, and they have one rule for these people, and they're never supposed to fall in love. And obviously what happens to Tom? Falls in love.
Sure, yeah.
I'm really curious about this one because the concept sounds so interesting and I want to see how it plays out. So I am looking forward to checking it out in March.
Cool.
And that is it for the March possibility piles on both our
nice,
ends. Although
short,
I might try and sneak in Shadow and Bone too. You never know.
You never. I'm 100. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Especially because I'm so excited about the Netflix series.
I mean, March is nigh, and what was it happening in April?
Yes, April, end of April.
That's enough time.
Anyway, and you know, it would also just be nice to revisit everything before Rule of Wolves comes out, which is at the end of March. So we'll see. But those are all of the books that we are possibly going to be reading in March. We'll see how it goes, really. Hopefully we'll read at least some of them. Anyway, let us know what you guys are planning to read in March because we would love to know. And if you have any other comments, leave them down below. You can also find us on all our other social media. Always linked down below as usual. And we'll see you guys in a new video soon. Bye!
Bye.